you're gonna get free this time. Falling into a blue sky mind. Came to me in that song, my friend.
Hello and welcome back to You, Me, and the Elephant. This is Deb Air, your elephant in the room whisperer. I went to go record this particular episode a few days ago. And as much as I'm willing to come on here and not have some resolution, because that's not the intention of this podcast, this intention is to allow for enough space for things that we haven't necessarily looked at or considered before to come in to enlighten something about your life or your embodiment and inspire you to see more for yourself. This particular episode, which is about sustaining and maintaining, got prompted by in the morning. I have a few rituals, but one of the things I do lately is I've been pulling from this deck the Wild Unknown Archetypes by Kim Krans. She has many different cards that she has written. I really enjoy her bandwidth of how she takes certain disciplines, or in this case, archetypes, and opens up the scope. It's like anything for me, whether it's been astrology or the Enneagram or pulling cards, animal spirit cards, or whatever, depending on the phase of my life. I think we all like to have some reflection. I mean, this is why we are in relationship with other people, or we want to go out into nature because we're touching nature to be inspired, to feel something beyond the archetype of our thinker mind. It can be easy in our everyday to get narrow focused. So for me, these cards have been great just as a reflector. And I will often put an intention just for support and guidance, or, this is the path I'm on. What energy or what feedback do you have? Or what, in this case, what archetype will inspire me or guide me on that path? So again, we have all of our ways and all of our rituals, but that's how this particular episode be birthed into existence. I had picked something called the Sustainer, and I'm not going to read it all. If you are somebody who likes cards, I highly recommend this one. What I love about it is her bandwidth of how she explains things, but also, like, if you want to go deeper into a concept or into an archetype, she gives you other places to go to do that. So the thing that sparked me in particular was, it said, take note of the difference between maintaining and sustaining, which action describes your life more accurately. Now, that doesn't sound like anything big, but I'm sure you know for yourself that when you hear something that doesn't necessarily have to come in through a dramatic lens, but it hits you dramatically. This particular sentence, for whatever reason, like hit my gut. And I was like, oh, I feel that in this world of grind culture, when I can sit for a moment and take a breath into something that seems simple, that I could easily walk past or walk around like that elephant. There's something waiting in there for me. And I'm still discovering what that is, but it's coming more and more into profundity for me. When I got that gut experience from reading that sentence, it was one of those that went, ooh, like information that I knew but didn't know that I was less conscious about. It's like the subconscious just came forward into the consciousness. And for me, what happened is I felt, without knowing specifically, and I'll work through this with you, and hopefully this puts little light bulbs for you as well in your life. For me, it was like, oh, I could feel a truth of where I was maintaining things in a way that could be limiting moving forward in certain ways in my life. I'll say that again because clearly I'm still working this out. I could feel the places where I was doing my regular routines that are very important, by the way, and we'll talk about that, that might be maintaining something more as a reroute for letting some more information be part of my growth. I've been feeling in my life that there's more for me to experience. Of course, there is for all of us, but kind of in every part of my life. I'm a somewhat recently empty nester. I've had my business for 28 years. I have lived in my house since 1999. And I've shared this before. There's been this consistency of me in my life. There's been times in my life where I was just stressed out and it was like, how can I take care of this home? How can I take care of my child? How can I take care of my business? And there's times where I'm like, I'm just going to sell my business or I'm just going to sell my house. And I didn't, and it would have been okay if I did. What's interesting is I find myself in a place all these years later where I'm immensely content. The landscape of my life in the past didn't always allow me to really find personal joy because I was just so out of balance. I was giving so much, I was doing so much. And at that time, I didn't have myself in the circle of the service. We talk a lot about self care. Self care looks like including myself in the circle of my life, in the circle of my service. There are so many aspects of how we live, how we're indoctrinated that influence certain parts of our lives. What is relative to this particular conversation is that we're indoctrinated for stress, we're indoctrinated to perform. And those two combinations have wired our systems to link our self-worth to performance. How much we can do, how much we can produce. Our purpose is to produce. And if we're not producing, we're not worthy. Because that is such an imbalance of our humanity, because it's so prominent, many times our system has to go into stress in order to make change because we're so busy like maintaining this identity of performance. And it's why sometimes it's hard to just sit and relax on the couch, or we go the opposite direction and that's all we want to do. But yet in the back of our mind there's these seeds of guilt and maybe regret and judgment. Back to the conversation at hand in regard to maintaining versus sustaining, I was feeling those parts that are really good at performing and doing the things. And simultaneously, I'm in this part of my life where I have more balance. I have more space and navigation. I am in part of my service to life circle. Like I belong now. I'm not outside just taking care of everything else. And then at the end of the day, at the end of the month, at the end of the year, or when I'm sick, I will take care of myself. That is no longer the case, which allows a lot more space for me to enjoy what I do, including going into my office. So, in regard to career and my service path, my giving of my gifts to the world, there's been this podcast is a perfect example. There's been other desires that are igniting in me. And yet there is this joy of doing what I've done for so many years. To go back to the performance and stress thing, it's interesting in my life to see how many times for me to make change. I was just having this conversation with someone yesterday about a fire in my office that I had in 2001. And I was already making steps for change. And the bottom line is I didn't make the change yet, and there was a fire in my office. And I feel like when I was younger, I would have bigger things that would happen in my life that would force change. And that was a perfect example. Like it forced change. Finding out I was pregnant when I first moved here forced change. A lot of times these are how we make that change. We have to have enough pain so that we can move into a different reality. What I find, and I'm curious about anybody else, and it's okay if you find yourself in different ranges of this. There's a contentment that I have in my life. Part of it, I think, is the phase of my life that I'm in, but that I don't have this powerful pain that's urging me for change. Yet I have this powerful calling that's waking up without a lot of form. Some of it has form, but A lot of it is just conjuring itself into my existence and into my reality without all the form that is needed to manifest something differently. We need paper and pen. We need structures. And I think that maintenance is part of this, meaning that in order to continue something into existence, we need to take care of it. We must drink water. We must eat. We must take care of our gardens. We must plant the seeds at a certain time. We must have our garden in relationship to the sun in a certain way. We must make sure if we're not getting a lot of rain that we're watering our garden. There's attending to maintain a certain level of existence. This conversation brought in when I started to look at what people were telling me. I have quite a few people who are sharing this lately, and possibly quite perfectly in the springtime is a transition time for growth. Many people have talked to me lately about how they've made some pretty bold changes. And I think that sometimes when we have the information, like we're doing okay, or we have enough pain because like we're maintaining something, but we're no longer finding joy in it. We're no longer feeling sustained by it. Then we are going to have enough pain to say, I've got to make change. So some of those people have like left their jobs, started their own business. Some people in the opposite, they had to leave their own business and start working differently. And these can be hard changes to make. And I know that we all know that change is the one constant in life. I was also talking to somebody else, and she was similarly like myself saying, it's really interesting because everything's really great. And I really enjoy my life. And yet I know there's something more that wants to change. That is the rhythm of life in general, the honor of cycles, of life cycles. We certainly live in a culture that hasn't been indoctrinated with a lot of value or honor with life cycles and death. We can live our life so worried about or wanting to prevent the death of something, whether it's our death of our life, the death of a job, the death of a relationship, that we squeeze out the life that is right in front of us. And so this brings me to defining maintenance or maintain and sustain. Maintain means to keep something in its current state. It's like being able, like I said earlier, to make sure that we have a well-oiled machine, whether that's our body, whether that's our car, whether that's our relationships. To maintain relationships, we need to take care of them. We need to contribute to them. We need to nurture them. Same with our garden, right? That's what maintenance is. Maintaining something is bringing your energy to it so that you can keep it in that state that exists right now. A lot of times I talk about things that are opposing or seem like they're opposing or polarized, but yet there's a paradox in there. And this one's a little bit different. Sustain refers to supporting or keeping something going over a long period of time. The ability to meet the needs of the present, so the now, like maintaining, right, without diminishing the opportunities for the future. I believe that maintaining is part of sustaining. We need to nurture and take care of what is now. And sustaining is allowing for the art of life, the truth of life cycles and change to be part of that equation. Meaning that when we're sustaining something, we must include the invisible threads that come in that give us more information than what we're already maintaining. I think that maintaining doesn't necessarily require sustaining. That's the part that hit me in my gut when I read that question. What are the parts that I'm maintaining in my life? And what are the parts that I'm sustaining? It was a reflection for me to go, oh, where I'm in a place where I have a contentment, I have a space that I've never had. I've always had aspects of gratitude in my life, but there is more personal joy. Maybe I said this story on here before, but I remember I'm on my bicycle, and it was a beautiful day, and I looked up at the sun and I could feel my mom. She came through this, like, I saw this heart shape come out of the sun, and then I heard very specific words from my mom that said, "Every time you feel joy, I feel your love." And that was a showstopper for me. And I think part of this was indoctrination and identity of being a good person, of being a woman, of being what all the things is that I was super grateful for everything. I wasn't a complainer. I did and still do get joy from, I mean, it's possibly why I'm here on the planet in this moment in this body is like I get so much joy in watching people become more of themselves in all the ways, whether it be physically, emotionally, mentally, or spiritually. And if I can play a role in that. And yet, the painful truth is that I was not in the circle of that. I did not include me in the nurturing aspect of joy. So I was able to discern at that point in life when I was feeling joy collectively, but I didn't really know my own personal joy. Now I know my own personal joy, and when it came to the maintaining and sustaining, I was like, "Oh, I'm not in a lot of pain that is forcing change." Because when that happens, like the fire in my office, damn, I'll make change and I'll do it well. I will stop how I'm maintaining things. I can't maintain that building if it's on fire, and I will make that change, and then I will maintain that expanded way of what comes about from that change. It's a very subtle thing for me where it's easy to go to what you know. So it's like, here's how I have my rituals. This is what I do. I go to my office. And this is important. Remember, maintaining is part of sustaining. There's places in our life where we can get maintenance heavy. That's what I'm calling it, anyways, or maintenance unconscious. I'm just doing the thing. It's like driving to the place that you've driven 20 years and you don't remember how you got there. We're on autopilot. I think there's some aspects of maintaining that can also go on autopilot. I think that's been happening. And part of it is because when we make change, we kind of want to know what we're doing. And I think if a caterpillar is in a chrysalis, it's not quite sure what it's becoming. It feels like it could be dying, and it doesn't know that it's going to become this beautiful butterfly yet. And for me, the way that information is coming in, the way that I've lived my life, the way that I've maintained my life is if information comes in, then I'm going to create something. And I talked about this in one of my other episodes about flipping something and making it into reality. And although I really honor that, it's taken me quite a while to realize how much of that was I doing because of this self-worth, performance, stress indoctrination, that in order to be worthy, that I needed to create something and do it and make it into a three-dimensional reality. And it's interesting for me because what's coming in lately doesn't have, well, part of it comes in form and part of it just doesn't have a form. So if somebody's asking me, "What are you doing in your life now? What do you want?" Like, I'm the caterpillar in the chrysalis going, "I don't know. Sometimes this is struggly. I can't quite see that I'm going to be a butterfly yet." And I'm conditioned to flip it. But on that conditioning, the part that has changed for me is this space, this knowing that it doesn't have to be a form yet. That can be a tough thing when we're conditioned to flip something and know what it is. You need to kind of let it in, but you also need to like grab the threads that you know, right? Or else it could just kind of float on by. We also want to grab the opportunities. That's what sustaining is. When we can know that when we're maintaining things the way they are, there's this information coming in, or there's the flowers that are starting to blossom, that there's new color in your life that's beckoning you, that's calling you. And even if you don't know what that is, that you must loosen the grip of how you've been maintaining something long enough for that information to come in so that you can include like sustaining the opportunity of the future. So there's been parts that I've been a little less conscious of. Like, I know how to maintain my life. I know when to go to the grocery store. I know when to, all these mundane things that I'm comfortable with doing. I know how to do that. What I've been looking at is how much of my time am I spending doing that? And how much of my time am I nurturing the opportunity of the future? It's been a very interesting thing. And so I think with maintaining, we can do maintenance heavy or unconscious. We might be just focusing on what we have to do and maintain and maintain and maintain. And I think when we're maintaining too much without allowing the consciousness of sustainability to come in, then we can choke something off. And we move from maintaining as a part of sustainability and we just start surviving. And this is why this is an important conversation because we live in survival culture. We're conditioned to commiserate. We're conditioned to go, oh my gosh, I'm so busy. I just had that conversation with somebody, and everybody who knows me or have worked for me, and they're like, we're so busy today. And I would have people, and you can do this now, I have people close their eyes and take a breath and just say, I'm so busy. I'm so busy. And feel how this lands in your body right now. I'm so busy. And take another breath in your nose and out your mouth. And now I want you to say, I'm really active. Things are active for me right now. And take another breath in and exhale. This has been something that I learned through life over time is that every time I said I was busy, it was a badge of honor because it went into that performance grind culture. I'm worthy. And the more busy I am, the more worthy I am. The more busy I am, the more stressed I am. The more busy I am, the more tired I am. So part of what we do is we commiserate and we compare how busy we are because we're fighting for self-worthiness. As we can see, that's probably not the most healthy thing. So I'm curious how that lands with you. And I think that's when active came into my life because I do love life and I engage in life in many different ways. But what's changing for me is untethering from the cultural conditioning of how I am active or the reasons, source of why I may be active in life. And being active feels like more of a choice that I've made. Being busy seems like something that I don't have any choice in. And I think that we end up commiserating because there's parts of us that are like, I know there's more. I know there's more than just maintaining this busy experience of culture. And that's why we become unconscious to it as well. Or we hyper focus on maintaining everything. We start to micromanage our life. We start to micromanage our kids, micromanage our job, micromanage everything, our bodies. And sometimes we can micromanage our bodies and do all the healthy things. But if the source is coming from this stress point, it's not really that healthy because you could eat all the good things and do all the good things for your body, even exercise, which can help some. But if your stress hormones are out the roof because you're just trying to like catch up with the Joneses, you're just trying to be worthy, then your biochemistry changes, your hormones change, and what you actually take in and or how supportive what you're doing for your body significantly diminishes. One of the places I was thinking about in my life that is so subtle but ends up having a really potent feeling experience for me is where I'm not maintaining. And I think that we can do extremes in both directions. So I already talked about maintenance heavy. Then there's those parts that we don't go to, we don't look at. And my basement is one of them. I have known, like, I have lived in my house for a long time. I have other people's things in my basement. I just have things in my basement. I have old paint cans because my son used to paint down there. And I've been wanting to reconcile that and clean that for a long time. I have done some, but it sits there in the background. It doesn't come to the foreground enough to become something important enough to make change on. And I was reflecting on that and I was remembering a time with my mom. My parents built their house when they were in their 20s, and the house that I grew up in was the same house that they built. And when my mom was not well and she needed to go to hospice, I was the one that was really spearheading that for her and taking care of that for her. And so, literally, the moment before she was going to leave her house that her and my dad built when they were in their 20s, she was leaving that house for the last time. What came out of her mouth was, "I'm sorry I didn't finish cleaning the basement. I'm sorry I left that for you." And the reason I'm sharing this story is because I think there's a lot of times where ignoring maintaining something, there's things that we ignore because they actually are linked to something that's really painful. Just sharing this vulnerability with you right now, it's like, oh, I could see in reading this one sentence where I maintain things that are easy because I know how to do them, and where I don't maintain or pay attention to things that have pain associated with them. And my mom, and hearing that, who I had to be in that moment on a soul level, I was for her. I was her birth coach into her other life, into leaving her body. But the person in me that still needs to reconcile things and really be okay, like, how cathartic is it going to be and beautiful and healing for me to release what she couldn't, right? With my own basement. It's interesting to watch where we don't maintain. And therefore, because maintaining something is part of sustaining, it really prevents our growth. So, what does my basement have to do with me sharing? Wow, I'm in this place where new things are calling me and they're different than I'm used to, and I'm happy with what I'm used to. It has everything to do with it. It has everything to do with it. Sometimes we have these blinders that seem like they have nothing to do with another part of our life. But in actuality, they're the very thing that is going to release the energy for that growth to take place. Reading this and starting to consider what I've been hearing with other people and the difference between maintaining things and coming to a place where, in order to sustain, which means that I need to invite the opportunity, the future, I need to be able to make change. And sometimes we're not making that change because we are so indoctrinated to do things well that we are afraid we either can't do that change successfully, or we're not, in my case, sure exactly what it looks like. So I get confused on implementing something. The gift of maintenance is taking inventory of what is right now. What sits right before me? What is the truth in front of me? I think there's a lot of power in taking a moment to ask yourself, what is in front of me right now? And if you are I'm grateful for everything, even if it sucks, fantastic. Look at, what are you maintaining because of fear of change, and not knowing what that is, or not knowing what's on the other side of that, like the caterpillar and the chrysalis. It absolutely requires a sense of faith and trust, and knowing that life cycles, life shifts every day. There's an aspect of us that may die and an aspect of us that may grow like the phoenix from the ashes. But if we don't let that in, then it can be futile. We can feel stunted. We can feel depressed. We can feel anxious because we know that there's something calling. But it does start with just seeing what is there. So if there are things you don't like, and even though you're grateful and you know that there's a reason for that, is there some other way that you can pay attention? What I'm going to do after I get off of this recording is I'm going to walk downstairs and I'm going to sit in my basement for 5 minutes, and I'm going to look around and I'm going to be with it. And I have no doubt, just feeling it right now, that there's going to be some emotions that are there for me and they're just waiting for me. And so, know the things that we're avoiding to maintain, there's gems in there waiting for you to hold you in that tenderness and to actually hold you into moving you forward into more. And if you're someone who's really busy at maintaining, I want to start cycling on the road and I only have a mountain bike and I'm maintaining that mountain bike really, really well. and it's tuned up, it's oiled, it's like a fine running machine. And I go out on the road and I'm cycling near some other people and they've got these beautiful road bikes. I can only step into that opportunity as much as I let myself make change. So I might sell my mountain bike if that's what I want to do and buy a road bike because that is a change I need to make. And then allow that maintenance to continue to take care of that so that I can step into the expanded role or desire that I have. I think that looking at sustaining and maintaining in a way that they are different, like discerning the difference and being able to look at your life in a way that allows for new information, novel information to come in, allows this sustainability to happen, and to look at the places that feel blocked or feel stagnant. It's important to start with the maintenance part of sustainability and say, what am I maintaining and choking? And what are the things that I'm just completely potentially avoiding? I was thinking of this the other day in regard to menopause, and I've mentioned this stage of life before on here, that how I've maintained my body has changed. What I want to eat, what my body needs changes depending on where we are in our life. And it's important to listen to those changes. And I've been a vegetarian 20 years, I think. And it's weird because lately I've been craving protein and yet I don't like meat. And so it's been guiding me, like I'm eating more eggs lately and I'm doing the things that seem like they match this feeling and experience. So it's changed how I maintain my body. But if I'm like, I need to have greens, I need to have all these things, and that's it, then I'm missing out on the sustainability of my life, of how I can evolve at this stage of the game. I don't quite know why things hit me so deeply than others, and that's something that sounds really simple. And I think that many times we can probably think of the word maintain and sustain as the same. And I think that taking a moment here and just discerning between them and realizing that they're not opposing, but that one is part of the other. And where can you take this time to look at your life and consider where that lands, where your relationship between the things that you maintain or might not maintain and the things that are not sustaining because they're not allowing the new places to come in. Or perhaps you go into the future too much, and that would lean towards maybe not maintaining what is right in front of you. So, I've said this before here as well, is that when I have a conversation and I can feel my cells buzzing, I know something is transmitting. I hope that is the same for you. As always, thank you for taking this ride with me. If there are themes of life that are coming up, I trust that they're coming up for many others other than yourself. So please email us at yourgapmagic@gmail.com and we'd be happy to bring those forward. Thank you so much. Until next time. And now, Trevor Hall with Blue Sky Mind.
It's in it through the body.